Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Меня зовут Алексей Комиссаров.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Alexei Komisarov. Before we begin our session that I'm going to moderate, we're going to have many votings today. We would really like to involve the audience to make the session interactive as much as possible. Please open the website, meti.com. Could you bring the previous page on the screen? Code 622446, menti.com. Let us test the system. Let us exercise a little bit. The first question was, are you ready to start this session or do you need more time? So you should choose yes or no. Are you ready or not? The question is not difficult. Please vote as soon as possible. Are you ready to start the session? 38 people have already voted, 39. So it doesn't take much time. Let us show the results of voting on the screen right away. Or maybe we shouldn't begin. Maybe you're not ready. Who knows? 50 people. Everything is high-tech, somebody's commenting. I haven't received the result as well yet. Okay, let's hope for the fact that you support the beginning, that you are ready to begin. These are digital technologies. Digital technologies at work. You are putting your hands up already. No, let's test the technologies. Let's check the hypothesis. And the subject of our discussion today, creation of conditions for self-realization and bringing talents to light as a factor of socioeconomic development. You know, I've been watching these sessions carefully. And practically in every session, there was a discussion about human capital. Everywhere I heard it that the tasks that were set forth by the president and all the national projects are impossible to be implemented without human capital. People are needed. At one of the discussions today, there was a discussion, and there was one phrase. The problem of Russian economy is an external economy. And it's hard to find someone who would disagree with this. Everybody understands the level of skills, professionalism, the HR policy, human capital in different corporations and in the state positions. But it's not that easy to tackle. Oftentimes we see that stuff that we have in reserve doesn't work. Oftentimes we see that leaders and managers of different levels are oftentimes not interested. They don't want to grow their people. They don't want to promote the best people to other positions. We see that, speaking about the importance of education, many leaders and many managers are not striving to teach and educate their people. They're not sending them to trainings. Oftentimes we see that loyalty to the manager is much more important rather than professionalism. I mean, crony policy. We all discuss that we're in the fourth industrial revolution and we're on the edge of new times, and we're speaking that soft skills are very important now. But behind them, behind the scenes, very often some professional skills are getting lost. It's a problem as well. So I would like to ask our esteemed speakers to focus your attention on some problematic subjects, and I would like to ask the audience to ask very sensitive questions, to ask hot questions, so that we can come to some interesting conclusions, so that we can think together how we can overcome the barriers and how we can actually promote the talents. In our discussion today, we have a very professional panel of experts, and let me introduce you to them. Let us begin with the way they are sitting here. Andrei Betin, Deputy Governor, Deputy Chairman of Novgorod region. Yes, let's welcome. Dmitry Peskov, Special Representative of the President of Russian Federation for Digital and Technological Development Issues and the Agency of Strategic Developments. Ruslan Vestirovsky, Deputy Chairman of the Central Bank of Russian Federation. Yuri Zubarev, State Secretary, Deputy Minister of Finance of the Russian Federation. Yuri Ivanovich is my colleague in terms of moderation. He's gonna help me moderate today. Later, I will tell you how he's going to do it. I hope it will work out and it will become more lively and more interactive. Pavel Sergeyevich Bezruchka, managing partner, ECOPSI Consulting and chairman of Expert Council of the Leaders of Russia. Konstantin Palunin, partner and managing director, BCG in Russia, head of public sector expertise development. Before we switch to presentations, we have a few questions to ask in the voting tool on the website menti.com. I wanted to offer them so that we could flex our brain a little bit. Questions are not complex, they're not difficult, so they will take about 20 or 30 seconds. Choose the right answer. Later, I will tell you why we're asking these questions. Can I step in, please, now? On question number 1, we had 98 votes in favor and 2 votes were against, and 100 participants got registered only. Maybe we should give them some time to get ready. Now, this question, where we have multiple choice, we don't give much time, 20 or 30 seconds. Next question will be more complicated, where we'll allow 3 minutes for them, and you will have a chance to answer that question while listening to another speaker. And we will see the results right after the presentations, or as soon as we have a gap between the speeches. Okay, thank you. Now we're switching to the speeches. I wanted to give the floor to Konstantin Palunin. Konstantin, could you say a few words about the situation in the world on the subject of our discussion? And maybe you could emphasize some most acute points, most painful subjects. For instance, oftentimes it is said that in Russia, youth wants to emigrate. And I know that you have studies all over the world that are showing that the situation in Russia, as far as I know, is not much worse and maybe even better than in many other countries. So I wanted you to set the tone, actually, in terms of global agenda, and then we will bring it down to earth, to Russia. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Can I ask you to please show my slides, put them on the screen? Thank you, Alexei. Alexei, colleagues, good afternoon. The subject of talents and human capital and labor market is in the focus for everywhere right now. Apart from geopolitics, apart from economical growth, apart from technologies, it's always high on the agenda. It's always being discussed. Our main asset, our main resource, now, in the past, or in the future, people matter all the time. In BCG, we're a commercial organization. We work for money, but in Russia, we do many things just because we believe that this is the right thing to do. And it's not our creativity. This work is the result of work of a whole team, and this is a lengthy process. We've been working on different studies for a long time. We're tracking the level of labor market and the market of education, and we really and truly believe that the opportunities of these countries are enormous, and this is a huge subject of discussion. I'm a father of 3, and yesterday I was at school at a parents' meeting of my children. We all are experts in education over there, but people sitting here are all experts at being employers, and you know what to do to be a good employer. And every person in this audience could not imagine 10 years ago that he would be sitting here doing what you're doing in a professional manner. And 100% of people here, I'm looking at colleagues whom I know. I'm a PhD in chemistry. I'm a partner at BCG, and I'm working in education right now. Why does it matter? Because there's a lot of money and a lot of resources, and ultimately, why are we doing this? For this reason, everybody says we have trends, we have opportunities, we have technologies, we have people And here we have a set of stories and corporate universities and so on and so forth. And we have a lot of corporate fuss, a lot of corporate buzz. Together with Rusatom, we have conducted a huge study. And next iteration, not only in Russia, we are covering 5 countries. We have held interviews and we're looking into statistics just to understand what's the problem actually. And the problem actually, if you try to put it in numbers, in words and in numbers, if we phrase a problem not on the way that children like phones much more than studying math. And by the way, it's a problem. I don't know what to do about it. Children actually love their phones much more than the studies. And those people whom we're hiring to work, they're different now. More than 1.3 billion people in the world are doing a job without having a competence for it. Just think about it. We call it qualification gap. It means that people are doing not the thing that they were educated to do. They are not doing what they want to do, and they're not paid the way they want to paid. So their skills mismatch their job, but there's a deficiency of skills. What does it account for? It accounts for 6% of global GDP, and as a result, it impacts quality of life and growth of economy. Quality of life and growth of economy, self-development, self-actualization, it impacts it all. Let me try and switch the slide. So this problem is there. We should recognize it. It's not being discussed that much. It's not being shown in numbers. It's not what BCG invented. Russian Presidential Academy of Economic Studies also speaks about it. Here we just have a little bit a different look at it. We're looking at a different angle at it, and we keep on working on these studies. This problem covers everybody. It's 2 out of 5 employees in OECD countries. Qualification gap is up to 50%. So 1 in 2 is doing the wrong thing or is not falling into his skill. So every employer, including BCG, who are hunting people, invests a lot of money to train the person and then to lose this employee because the principle one life, one career is not here anymore. Just look at your life. You change lifelong learning and you change the jobs throughout life and you change careers throughout life. So education system, how should it fit in here? How should it work? Let's see how it is digitalized. How does it work now? In Finland, it accounts for 20%. In Russia, it accounts for 45% from able-bodied people. And in Mexico, it accounts for 80% approximately. And this is a huge situation. It impacts their competitiveness and it impacts social sustainability. So now, it seems like a person who is overqualified or underqualified, and he comes to a job. We have a huge army of taxi drivers, security guys in the country, or salespeople. Let's remember the numbers. In America, in 1970s, the percentage of taxi drivers with college diploma accounted for 1%. Now it accounts for 15%. Now it's the same. Why does it happen? Why do people get a good education and then they're doing an important but low qualified job? And it impacts productivity a lot. Why does it matter? There's a direct correlation in labor productivity. One of the resources of the economy is human potential. So this qualification gap is correlated with the level of labor productivity, and as a consequence, all countries have bigger expenses, bigger costs. And all the countries recognize that this problem is worth discussing, not on the level of the university, but on the level of countries. It's not that the universities are training people to do wrong things. Why does it happen this way? My parents would usually tell me like this: the system of education is mismatching, it doesn't fit into the system. It has always been there, a mismatch between the skills that are given at the university and the real life. Now it's getting more acute. Here you see a picture that illustrates it. Actually, of course, the system of demand and the system of supply and the system of onboarding people into jobs, it's getting different. We used to have Industry 1.0, cycles, goals and objectives. Industry 2.0, Industry 3.0 are comparable more or less. It means that there was standardization, a huge number of standard courses and trainings, and further it's a conveyor. And ultimately, we get to an education system which has even more inertia, which is even more slow. And employment market is also working quite slow because re-equipping this conveyor takes time. What's going on now is clear. Technologies are updating every 2 or 3 years and further and further. As a result, we have a gap. The inertia, the slow system of education is still there, and the demand by employers is updating faster and faster. In some industries, we see it's more vivid. In some industries, it's less vivid. It's not only the problem of economy; it's a problem of it's social problem as well. We have a colleague here who loves to refer to social contract. In the first phases, we had loyalty in exchange for protection by the state, and people were using these terms. Development for the chosen ones. Then we had productivity in return for employment. If you work well, then you have an employment. Then mass standardization, and now at this stage we're speaking about mass uniqueness, responsibility for your development, responsibility for your opportunities. Because either the state tells me what to do, either the employer tells me what to do, or my parents tell me where to go and what to do. They help me choose my path. As a result, we have a qualification gap of 40–45%. And as a result, we forget that there are no bad solutions. And please think how often our parents were putting us on a path that we had to change further. It doesn't work anymore, or it has a limited availability to work right now. This is it explains why the current time is a challenge, because the system, the slow education system now does not allow to train people properly. Mass uniqueness, the term mass uniqueness gets from the human centricity principle in our paradigm, of Soviet words. Everyone owns his own fortune, everyone is choosing his own path, and other actors are creating opportunities. Skills, hard and soft skills, and the skill to learn, and the discussion related to hard skills and soft skills, we will support it. Of course, we will take part in it. Mathematics and geography and about the sciences, biological sciences. Motivation. Motivation is an important point. It's a cornerstone now. The structure of labor market, including mobility. You have mentioned mobility. Let me mention mobility as well. Of course, we are an exporting country. We're exporting talents, but other countries also export talents. We're dealing with global migration story when people get an education in Germany and they are dreaming to go to the Silicon Valley and they are dreaming to work there, just like our people in FISTech and our physical university. But the competition is completely different. It has a different level of competition. And for instance, a diver will go to another country if he has different opportunities there. But understand that mobility has changed. By the way, do you have some numbers here? Because about a year ago we discussed it, and I know that in Norway and in other Scandinavian countries, the number of people who want to emigrate is much higher compared to those in Russia. I don't have numbers right now, but we have a global study that we have done together with Russia as well, related to migration flows. Of course, we all know that our IT guys, our brains are drained into other countries, but in other countries they're also competing. If we take Scandinavia, for instance, Scandinavian countries, let me explain how they are trying to overcome this situation. They have found a solution for that, to keep their talents, to retain them. This is the framework. Now let's have a look at what's going on. We have different points of view. The public, I hope, is trying to see how they fit in there. But on the other hand, we here in the audience we have leaders and managers of high level, and I hope you understand the labor flows that are in place.
So as you can see, we have 45 countries here in sampling. We segmented it in 4 categories because the conditions can be different. We can't compare ourselves neither with Finland nor with Japan because the conditions are very different. Anyway, we can cluster those things to see how the institutional and human environment is structured in terms of capabilities, motivation, and opportunities. So proactive and open. UK and US developed and stable. Germany and exporters of talents are not is not only about Russia, about other countries as well, and exporters of a workforce like Mexico and others. So there is a gap between what business thinks about what's the most important thing and what's most critical for institutional environments and the opinion of the state, who are responsible for regulation. For example, in our country, and those countries that belong to the same category, has a very similar profile. We have 15 indicators that show how the labor market is structured. So human centricity is obvious, and this is what we have, and but this has an impact on qualification gap. So business thinks that we have good situation with the capacity and capabilities, whereas business doesn't think so, and vice versa. Business doesn't find many opportunities, but the state thinks that there is a plenty of opportunities. So there's a big disbalance in terms of perception that makes a person find himself or herself in a very strange position because he or she doesn't know who to listen to. And I can give you an example. So why are we doing this? This is a statistic survey, and it's a new research. And we are being a commercial organization which is very interested in moving forward. So it's not about finding a recipe or finding some pill that can help us resolve this problem. As I said, the countries have different profiles, different sectors. So there's a gap in different countries with similar institutional conditions. And the gap is there not because of the cultural differences, not because of historical circumstances, like Deutsche Bank used to be like this. But they have a very clear range of instruments that they use to stimulate the behavior. So they create incentives to make the system move towards the right direction, which is good both for business and the state. And I wanted to give you an example of Sweden. You have only 1 minute, yeah. So what does Sweden do? It provides 6 months of paid holidays. No, unpaid holidays, for example. I don't have to work for 6 months, and then I can go back to start my entrepreneurial business. So it's good for people to try different sectors. So they're protected, and they can go back to their work in a social state. And then what does France do? They give 1% of their profit onto the score so that the employers could use it for their training. They introduced a new tax so that employers could stimulate their staff members for development because they have to use that score. And another example is about Estonia. They have only 3 million people. And the headquarters of the think tank is in Luxembourg, so they are trying to balance of supply and demand based on big data, but they failed so far. So now to sum it up, what's important is to manage changes on the institutional level and on human level as well. So it's very important to motivate people, and but here it's more important to understand, to accept it, and using universities, employers to stay there and improve it. So another thing is we are managers and we try to get this message across. Learn to learn. So this is a very important vector because it creates incentives for self-regulation. And this will happen both in this country and in other countries as well. Thank you. Actually, I noticed that Dmitry Peskov did not agree with approaches used in Sweden. I wanted to give him the floor now, but not because of this. We have been known each other for many years, and I admire him because together with his team, they always look into the future, not into the past. So, what do you think about this qualification gap? Is it going to go deeper, bigger? And how can we change the situation? Thank you. Well, we have more unicorns appearing here in this country than in Sweden. Maybe we should have a pause and comment on the voting results. Yes, actually, the first answers have appeared already, so there's nothing surprising about it. We can see that the audience demonstrates a certain degree of apathy. Next slide, please. Now, this question is for concentration, and not a single question is right. Some guesses can be seen here, but we're going to continue testing. Can you show next question? Please take it seriously, because this is a very good indicator. I gave a different answer, but it wasn't reflected. It's probably Central Election Commission that interfered. We'll ask to make recalculations. So let's continue. We have 3 questions. Let's answer them quickly. While we give time to give answers, we can give the floor to Dmitry, not to lose time, not to waste time, if you don't mind. Okay. So, I think that the main problem when we work with talents is that we try to make it very streamlined, and I think it's quite useless, even sinful to a certain extent, because all the generations are different, and there has always been a certain disbalance. Earlier on, it was bigger than today. And the consultants can mix up 2 things, Luzha and Laja. So it's very harmful to transfer scenes of microeconomists onto different spheres of life. We shouldn't mix figures and atoms. We can't regulate human capital by market terms only and then make statistic calculations. I don't know any examples of state policies to develop talents. So the solution is not about some common policies described in standards, laws, and other legal documents, but about condensation of bright, innovative projects that can meet the challenges of today. So those countries that have such projects that drive other people have good results, because first historians, then writers describe this experience in the logics of the mistake of survived. And all the projects that we implemented in the last 10 years related to global education and world skills, we have a dozen projects like that. They were based on the certain era instead of building certain common policies and logics. And all the rest belongs to the sphere of myths. The export of talents towards Silicon Valley is not growing, and it hasn't been growing for a long time. You probably saw skyscrapers in the park, Melville Park. I haven't seen any. And it means that the accommodation that is rented remains the same, and there's no jump into the growth of human capital. So it's all just part of the myth. Yes, France introduced 1% of tax. Brazil rejected this system because they were considering this for all employees to fund the system of professional education for the whole country. So that's why these are just all some statistics games. And that's why we have a different, very simple approach. Yes, we're entering the period of uncertainty. Nobody knows what to teach next. There's a very simple evolution of a competence model. I model, T model, V model. So I model is when you have very broad knowledge. V model is when you know two specific areas, professional areas. Now W model becomes popular when you need two areas in depth, and you have also to have other skills. So if you can switch between those things, then you'll be very successful. And if you want to be more successful, you have to invest into this shift that reduces the risks, because the key competence for the future is to be able to work with risks. So how can it be done? Through teamwork. The more multidisciplinary it is, the less risks you bear, because you can work with very complex models. If you can build something that is called trust network, that consists of people that you trust and that you can fill the gap and cope with failure, you will increase your chances. Is this enough? No, it's not. There is the evolution both in hard skills and soft skills. Now, for example, if we put critical thinking to soft skill, it's nonsense because it's not right. Just by definition. Now we also have another branch, digital skills. And W model has digital skills on one hand and soft and hard skills on the other hand. Is this sufficient? No, it's not, because the key factor of success is hard skills related to our neurology and physiology, being stress resistant, the ability to get insights, to understand. And how can we do this? How can we help you to understand that your knowledge is adequate and appropriate? You need another skill, a skill of reflection. So if you have reflection skill, then you can understand what happens. How can you train reflection skills? You have to know the language of thinking. Actually, there are 10 to 11 languages like that, and related to your life obligations. And it means that you will have to be able to analyze risks and to accept risks. And accepting risks is about developing culture of internal entrepreneur. And it should be based on trust network. I'm afraid the time is running out. So trust advisor is the person that could help you, that you could consult with, and AR advisor that can give you some suggestions and tell you something new about yourself. So is there a state policy that can lead towards this? No, never. So what should we invest in? In courageous people that are willing to take risks and willing to come up with brave and reckless projects. So don't take the experience of other countries into consideration. Thank you. So we found out about the global picture, and now let's get back to what we have here. Ruslan, I would like to give you the floor now. So are there any comments with regard to voting? So we are all learning, and as to the long-term perspective, the result isn't very high, but as to distance courses, online courses, professional trainings, and qualification upgrade, we take part in this training quite actively. Now, here the right question is to change. And the next one, the next slide, please. So half of the audience chose 1 second probability, and it shows that people probably guessed this probability rate. You know, I will either meet a dinosaur or won't meet the dinosaur. It was a very soft question, but later on it will become more differentiated. Do you have a next slide with questions? Okay, then let's move on to the next presentation. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm happy to see you. I just completed my training at the British Institute of Directors. So it's true that you have to build up your career, and I'm sure that you had several degrees, and there are many options as to how you can invest your resources in your professional development. It's great to see so many heads of HR units that began to work at the Ministry of Finance, the tax authorities, the accounts chamber, and it's great to see you all, because I attended a similar event several years ago, and I saw HR specialists of our public organizations, and I felt like crying. So now that I see this transformation, it means that our people become more professional, more proficient in their skills, because they know how to integrate best practices and work with them. So our profile ministries are going to develop state policies that will help us determine the talent, promote them, develop them, and work with them productively. Now I would like to show you several slides. I realize that I don't have a lot of time, but anyway, we follow the same way of transformations, and 4 years ago we decided to invest in our human resources at the bank. So we had 65,000 people at that time, and we identified our mission and vision. We studied what did leaders in different spheres of business, like Severstal, Sberbank, and many other international leading banks. So we identified our main objective to provide financial and cost stability. So we don't save on talents, and it's very important to be responsible for the results, and probably there are some similar things with corporations, but anyway, we serve the community, we serve the society, and this is what makes us different, because if you develop your career, it's possible to do at the Bank of Russia. So we look in the long-term perspective. So honesty is very important for us, because the decisions that we make are very serious. It concerns banks and not only banks. So it's very important to make our employees believe in what we do and own what we do. So we have a vision with the slide. Vision without execution is hallucination. So there are 4 components that help transform the company from one level to another. So our structure has changed dramatically, and the levels and hierarchy has changed. We removed several subdivisions, but introduced introduced new ones like cyber risks and many other innovative subdivisions came into being. So we changed many business processes related to personnel flow and surveillance function. We have IT hubs, and they develop different products that we work with. The IT function has become narrower, and now we more work with developers that give us added value. Now people can either help or transform, maybe teach something, and that's why we introduce new people, like 3 to 4 people per year.
So we hire a lot per year, and it matters to us because we need new competences. We're regulating the market. We must understand the market, and we must make balanced solutions, balanced decisions. And culture, the fourth part. This is what we began with. Values are in all the management processes, and it's important to us that all managers of the organizations must be guided by value principles. And what matters here? Managers must be role models. If a manager and a leader is being the role model, then the whole organization is cascading it. We are lucky with the top team and with the leader. Those who did not accept the values, they left us. And newcomers came and they share our values, and now we understand where we're going, where we're moving. On Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have a session on data management. And there we're going to discuss what culture an organization needs to do it right. We have a European Central Bank that's visiting us. Regulator of Singapore is going to visit it. Skolgova is helping us to do it. Spanish professors are going to attend, and they will help us structure it and understand it right. And here we are comparing ourselves now and ourselves 4 years from now. And now it's now we're the same, but minus 15,000 people. The bank has become a mega regulator. We have more tasks, but we have engineered our processes, and we have automated many things and have optimized many things. Now let's switch to the thing that we hold dear. HR is the key thing for transformation. Performance management, remuneration system must be right so that you retain best people. HR, business partners, institutions. Our HR is integrated into all functions, and it helps business managers to hold all the changes and to maintain the processes, competences development, and headcount. We have determined HR strategy for the next 3 years. You see the main points here. Internal customers, we need to support transformation, we need to develop culture, and of course we also have at the other level, we should support the market, and we should gain more competences. Our mission, vision, purpose, functions, where we're moving. Just a few thoughts that I wanted to voice here. First, recomprehension of leaders' role, because usually our leaders were saying that our people agenda accounted for less than 1% in our working time. Now it accounts for 35%, sometimes even up to 40%. Intermediate feedback sessions and purpose setting, goals and objectives, working with talents, retention of talents, and we're working with leaders of Russia. Our chairman had 4 students. Alyona is here. Yes, she was a part of the leaders of Russia. And we did it for 4 years, and we decided to use it within our organizations in regions. I also have now some students that I'm working with, and it changes the profile and the image of the leader, not only in soft but also in hard. Our regional division. Central Bank is throughout the whole country. Supervisor used to be like a prosecutor or a tax inspector, and he would supervise only. Now we're positioning our regional leaders as partners in development of the region. They should communicate with the market. They should manage the expectations. So the messages that we send, they are important, they matter, and they must rebuild, reshape the hard part and the soft part, meaning how to convey these thoughts. Here the balance matters. And here we invest a lot here, education, training our staff reserves, Here is a talent management system. I will not dwell upon it, but it's an integrated system. It's a traditional one. You can have a look into it in the presentation. But what I wanted to focus on is we are using some tools to measure potential. There are three components: thinking, energy, and attitude. In attitude, there are two parts: diplomacy and modesty. We believe that when you want to work in the state organization, these are very important points. Development program. Energy development, we're launching it together with Skolkovo MCA and Berlin Business School. These are stages of leadership. Some of the people on the panel are speaking there. Dmitry was a guest in the stage of leadership in the Bank of Russia. About 40 best speakers in the country that are ever available. We have a couple of thousand participants. They will take this program, and a big change, a big break for all leaders, for all managers. It's an enormous investment to upgrade our managers who have not been educated ever since they graduated from a university. So now they get a chance to gain more knowledge and gain more skills. Potential development, potential people development. We have a strategic human resources committee that's managed by Elvira Sahibzadovna and all the deputy chairman. We are developing a succession scheme. We are training people who are going to take the positions of those who will get promoted. And in last year we had 15 promotions. So succession plan does work. And we recently held an engagement survey. We did one in 2017 and another one in 2019 just to see the dynamic, and the growth is 10%. In 2017, we had 63. Now we have 73% engagement among employees. And a few main points. One of the most important points that grew by 15 or 18% is career opportunities within the organization. 34 participants of the survey mentioned that this is what grew dynamically indeed. This is the right signal of the organization, and the culture is changing as well. So now people do have a chance to grow their career within the central bank, and they didn't have this chance before. Just a few more points. People training people. It's a fundamental program. We have coaching here and software education and offline and online. Also wanted to brag a little bit. Our university is headed by one of the coolest people from education, Andrei Afonin. He used to be establishing the university for Rosatom. And I'm sure that this is what will help us create a good university, and we will create the right messages. Another track we're considering is expert career, because some people do not want to grow upward. Some people want to grow horizontally. Main experts, main economists, they have a separate track. They have a separate recognition system, remuneration system. In order to become a big expert, in order to grow, you don't have to manage a big division. You personally, on your own, can grow into a big position as an expert. And we are ready to recognize your efforts, and we are ready to remunerate you. So I mean that many practices are perfectly fit into state sector. And I'm sure that we all have enough wisdom to do the right thing and to obtain these opportunities of development that are available now. Thank you. You mentioned that a message from the leader of the organization is cascaded right away from top to bottom. But actually, in order to change the culture, it really takes a lot of time. You mentioned that the central bank 4 years ago and the central bank now are two different organizations. Do you think that the main purpose have been achieved in terms of changing the culture, changing the mindset and approach? I understand that it's an ongoing process and it's going to be a forever process, but still, you know, in the beginning, I thought it would happen faster. I thought 3 or 4 years would be enough. But actually, for this big traditional organization, this huge organization, is going to take 5 years plus, or maybe even longer, maybe longer. So changing the culture is a lengthy story. It requires a lot of efforts, and it requires a lot of wisdom from leaders and managers. So we're underway. We're in the middle of our journey. The central bank is a very specific organization, has a higher degree of freedom. Executive power has more limitations, has more restrictions. What do you think, Yuri Ivanovich? How does it happen with you? Are you going through a transformation as well? I know that the Ministry of Finance is going through a change in terms of human resources policy. We have another vote in as well, and maybe we should look into it first, and then you will tell us what's going on with your organization. What is the chance that in our sector the approach changes as well? Let's have a look at the question and at the voting first. Let's make a small break. Have there been any examples in your life when your career happened for the following reasons? Didn't have time to read the answers. So let me begin the presentation, and you can read the questions, and they will switch automatically, and I hope that in the end we will see the results. When Alexei was talking about the central bank, in the beginning he said that let us get down to earth, let us get down to practice from theory, from just pure knowledge. And while listening to Ruslan's presentation, it was the right thing to do to invite this person, because I was inviting him just like something perfect, something out of this world. What Ruslan has explained now is not down to earth. It's something, it's the ideal, the perfection that we're striving to. And it's so fantastic, it's so great that it really has happened. And it's on its journey, it's on its way. The organization is huge, and it's going in the right direction, and leadership and the leadership role is very significant, and the team matters a lot. This combination hardly ever happens. About limitations and restrictions, it's a state-owned organization, but it doesn't fall into law 79, federal law, and it implies a lot of limitations. I will not speak about them. I will tell you what we managed to do, what we are lucky to do. So if possible, could you... Yes, my presentation is on the slide, and the next question will be on your phones. You can see it on your phones. And this presentation is going to be underway. There's no information in the presentation. It just has some images. So maybe sometimes I will be speaking off the slide. The presentation will flow itself. So what I wanted to mention, at the same time, 3 or 4 years ago, we started to pay more attention to HR development. We created a special department devoted to HR. Even before the department was established, our leadership thought that these items must be as significant and high on the agenda as the other matters. I could show the statistics. Up to 30% of our employees are under 30 years old. So what the Ministry of Finance is associated with? Some accounts. This is the image. It's like accounts, some funds, and this is what we're trying to get away from, and our actions and our without actions in what we do. Here's the illustration. 30% of employees are under 30 years old, and from 30 to 40 are 34%. It's 64 if we add them up together. Then 18% below 50 years old, and 50 years plus, 18%. So the combination has changed dramatically, and it changed thanks to the opportunities and thanks to... So, I mean, the Ministry of Finance is not the main thing anymore. All the state service and Ministry of Finance within the state service became an attractive employer, an employer of choice. And it's not only the level of salary. According to a survey among our employees, it's ranking number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ranking number 10 in terms of salary. And overall, 4.5% goes there. Ranking number 1, stability. Ranking number 2 is engagement into big projects by the state. And the third criterion is professional growth. Professional growth is what matters to us. We understand that people whom we hire, first of all, consider it as an opportunity. A job with us, they consider it as an opportunity to obtain a new qualification, to obtain new skills, and they can keep on working. And we set an objective for ourselves to provide this opportunity. There are certain limitations, of course. Those are reasoned by the status of the state service and by law number 79, but we have obtained certain flexibility now, and we arranged for a number of trainings and educational courses, and they had an amazing response. People are taking part, they're happy. These trainings were primarily devoted to soft skills, to leadership skills, to team building. The next stage, we realized that the model that's on the scale of the country has a huge significance. We realized that some competitions such as Leaders of Russia need to be organized when high potential people are taking part in competitions and they are forwarded to trainings, and after that they are inviting other people together with them. So we held a contest as well. It was reserve of the minister, succession of the minister, and we selected talented people, and we created the training for them. In the beginning, right from the beginning, we realized that if we choose the top ones, then it incurs risks. That people have exceeded expectations, they want to stand out, and because of that, the other people become jealous. And these top people, these leaders, these high potential people, these active people, this is what we then call, and other people will call them the ones who want to be the first everywhere and all the time. And we're telling these people that we do not promise any promotions. We do not promise any privileges or perks, but what we can promise is that you will get the skills, you will get the knowledge, you will get the information that will help you stand out among your colleagues, among your peers, among other people of similar jobs, and you will get promoted because your leader, your manager will just notice your new skills and your ability to work better. This way, somehow, we managed to nivellate the situation to make it better. But all the people who work with HR, and every time you're trying to identify top talents, you need to think about it. You need to think how it's going to be perceived by non-top talents. Then we wanted to maintain the audience. We wanted to scale up the project a little bit. And we decided to train people not only on soft skills but also on hard skills, and we have launched trainings or even lectures, a number of lectures on financial modeling, on corporate finance, on company assessment. So this is the knowledge that people either obtained long ago at the university, or they have never obtained them at all, or they want to brush up this knowledge because in 5 or 6 years of work, even young experts, even young employees forget this knowledge. And we obtained a really amazing feedback, and audiences and rooms were really full. We have also mentorship and coaching. Just like with the Leaders of Russia, when you assign a few students to a leader, we also decided to use this model. These students have a chance to talk to deputy minister, for instance. The minister himself is not taking part in here. He is not a leader for everybody, so that nobody has this too high privilege. And all deputy ministers have students attached to them and working with students. We get faced with a situation that we don't know what to do. And when people come and say, I want to learn something, teach me something, and those who are teaching, they also don't know what to teach. So we developed curriculum, we developed some methodologies, and we all have now brochures this literature. It all looks quite in a professional manner now. Looks great. A guide in self-development, for instance, for every newcomer. As a corporate culture, we have a whole brochure, information about the Ministry of Finance for inboarding. So what I wanted to say here, all the best Western practices in human resources personnel. Not Western practices, but practices from the private sector, from corporations. We adapt them and we use them. So we copy them and we use them. And they're in demand here, and we see the result. And we see that our headcount has become much younger.
And we can see that it's very popular, it's in high demand, very high competition. When we recruit people, we abandon the classical model of interview, of job interview. Instead of some classical exam, we switch to testing. We see the test results, and we used our specialized research institute that helps us. So they helped us develop this testing model, and it's now part of our regulations. So there is no problem, and we are going to take it as a next step forward. We started it just last year, and we also identified these similar requirements when we have performance evaluation. It can be any kind of job. It can be a senior job or junior position. So we use the same requirements for performance evaluation of our staff. And, we heard people saying, we don't want this test. How come you give me this test? Why should I take it? I've been working here for such a long time. So there's a very strong resistance, but we're trying to overcome this resistance. There is no knowledge that you obtained and you can keep forever. It has to be a continuous process, a lifelong learning. So this is what we implement in our structures. Well, we are going to ask Pavel about tests and interviews because there are quite many subtle issues here. But if we take some scale and put professional quality on one end and loyalty and commitment, personal commitment on the other end, so what would be the right balance for you? In percentage terms, loyalty is important for employers, no matter whether it's a state corporation or private business or executive authority. Well, as part of our policies, or maybe a personal view? It's a very good question. There is this saying, you took us while we were very loyal, but now you want us to be smart as well. So it's true, this is what our directors encounter with. The main employer is not the deputy minister, but the director that manages his team. So he or she is searching for the right people that he needs. Of course, it's important to have a highly qualified young person, dynamic person, who doesn't cost too much, but who can make a big contribution and has lots of good qualities. So where can you find such a person? Actually, it's a real story. How did we search for right people? We asked people we know if we don't think about some junior positions where we can recruit students, senior positions. So we started using competitive selection. We applied to agencies and we post our vacancies, and then we start the competition based on Federal Law 79. So of course you can't avoid it. And there are winners, you know, those that have been selected. But anyway, we have a different problem. If the director uses these new methods of selection, he gets a new person that, won the competition. So it doesn't mean that he is going to be very loyal. At first, the director is very happy, but, he is highly competitive. He is ambitious. He always wants something. He gives feedback freely. He tells you what to do. And he wants to grow professionally. So, we got this feedback that this person will be rejected because, the system tries to package this ambitious young man, but then he or she has to leave. So there's a deep dichotomy here. It's interesting to discuss it in detail. If we had more time, we would be happy to do it. So now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker. You know how to implement HR policies in the region, so could you please share your experience? Can I ask for the clicker? Thank you, Yuri, for invitation. And I'm very happy to hear what has been mentioned here. I'm a deputy governor of Nizhny Novgorod region, and I can hear senior officials sharing their experience about competition, about HR policies. It's great. So everybody mentioned talents and working in teams. So it's true. I agree with the previous speaker who said it's impossible to find talents in a rigid system. That's why we have to take into account all sorts of HR mechanisms, select and find right people and invest resources so that they become the agents of change and make their contribution. And that's why I wanted to tell you what happens in my region, Nizhny Novgorod region. Some people emphasize the role of the leaders, and this is what we have. For example, our governor is a strong leader, so he said that it all depends on our human resources, and it means that HR has to deal with it. And thus, we developed a range of goals. So let's say HR is one pillar, but there are also many different functions behind it. So there are different practices in private and corporate business, both in Russia and abroad. But these practices are not usually implemented on the government level. So we launched our portal about the government team, and this is a fully operational HR mechanism that help us develop life cycle and career of municipal servants. It's about culture management. Many people say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and the same happens in my case. So we introduce lean technologies, and it's applicable not just to the region, but also to the government itself. That's why we develop the functions and we follow different kind of standards. It's very similar to Yandex or Google story. We can change a person only if we change his or her mindset. And it's not new that we have a special environment, but we should think about tomorrow when we have friendly relations and address as two using French word, not vous. So this helps us develop our foundations and make pavement for the future development. Then process makes difference. If we just look for talents outside instead of changing the process inside, these talents, even if they come, they will leave soon. And we deal with many issues, document flow, papers, and many other things. So we try to delegate certain operations for outsourcing because it takes time. So the big companies that work as large centers of servicing can help. And we did a survey, and the difference can be 700 times. And that's why we speak about the effectiveness of municipal servants. And we also talk to our people, residents, and get their feedback about their applications, their contact with authorities. So the national projects are very important for us, and this is our response to implementation of national projects at their places. We have 17 ministers at the moment, and throughout the year we had lots of different procedures, but 30% of the ministers have been replaced. We didn't know most of them, so it wasn't based on friendly relations or other kind of links like relatives or things like that. It was very different, and they all used ID numbers, so nobody knew their last names and first names. Now, speaking about the main principles of building up our HR unit work, when we prepared to this with our governor and we're thinking how to launch it, we had a brainstorm session, and we understood that it might take us 5 years, but we decided to do something impossible. We split HR as we separated it as a separate subdivision, so they are now completely different bodies, and actually they hate each other. Because HR subdivision doesn't have a single person that worked for municipal services. They are all young boys and girls, 25 to 30 years old. So as to classical HR service is the filter that prevents any mistakes. And still they work as a common, as a single HR service. And then we have some database about very promising specialists. We went pretty far when we communicate with our population. Whenever we elect senior officials, population can make a difference because there are opinion leaders, and so we have experts that are experts on the market. Only a minor part is from civil servants. And who is the chair of this commission? Myself. I am the chair of this commission. It's a good question. Telling you briefly, we have full-scale assessment procedures. I'm very grateful to RANEPA Academy, and we use a lot of tools from presidential reserves. Let's say there is a competition of 45 people, and 3 people that would make it to the shortlist are not familiar to the governor, so the governor doesn't know those finalists, and the initiatives can be very strong. They can be pro-Western people that sit with me together on the board, and so that's why nobody can blame or complain that the government makes wrong decisions. So these are some figures. It's not about YouTube only. 1,008,000 something views. So we know everybody. So you can vote for the project that started, and you can see 20,000 people registered on a portal, 33,000 authorizations via state services, public services portal, 14,000 of managers. So if we digitize all our projects, we'll be able to recruit good teams. You know, I remember Michael Jordan. Only teams can win the championship and not individuals. So you can see how many external participants we have. Somebody said, oh, you made them register. No, over 4,000 people are external participants, and there are young people among them that cannot yet work because they're under 18, so nobody made them do anything. I guess there's a very big workload that technologists can hardly cope with it. You have only 1 minute left. Yeah, I'm sorry that I went into details. 183 people took part in the competition to become a minister. 268 people participated in the competitions for municipality positions. And the deputy head of social policies is a teacher that used to work at the municipal school. That's how we are looking for talents. And you can see the whole range of people. It's a highly competitive environment for the whole area of the Russian Federation. 53 constituencies of the Russian Federation took part in our competitions, and lots of people had nothing to do with Nizhny Novgorod region. We didn't know them at all. And if you take a look at the management capacity, you can see the average competencies of our finalists. Being goal-oriented and critical thinking and communication skills and leadership skills. So these are the competences that we evaluate. So now I'm going to tell you about our commission. When we, for example, elect a Minister of Health, we bring together 30 to 50 people in order to identify the range of issues and the right competences for the people. And then we ask to select 5 or 6 people that will take part in the commission work. So this applicant at the very beginning will understand that they will have to interact both with the sector, with the society, and with the government. And while they select finalists, they can't reject them, so it makes the process much faster. Another important thing is initiative. When we hold our open competitions, we give our citizens take the initiative, and that's a very strict rule because it's a simple platform that helps any citizen to write a proposal or to give or draft some regulations. So then we play around different cases that have been proposed by the participants, and this can become a plan for the minister. And then the minister will implement the work, take right steps in order to reach the goals, and then report on it. So look, that we had 1,600 applications were submitted, and so many posts, and you can do it via our portal. And I saw people just making a proposal while taking a phone out from his pocket, and then he got 478 votes. So we have a very good potential reserves base. Sometimes we hear people saying, oh, everybody's afraid of taking part in competitions. You know, it's not cool because I'm so good. I don't need any competition. But one of the ministers took part, and then he made it into the list of reserves, and then he became one of the strongest candidates. So here you can see our know-how. our project lifts. So we have a multi-layer structure. We work with young children, teenagers, with volunteer teams and young people parliament. So they implement different projects, and then we realize that when they move from one level to another, the quality of projects improve, and then we can evaluate the competences and consider the opportunity to involve them for different positions or take part in the meetings. For example, from the leaders of Russia point of view, you know, we give priority to finalists and semi-finalists. They also can act as mentors. And some statistics for you.
Just briefly, we're open right now. We're searching for new partners. We're handing over this platform for free. We have agreed with Yakutia. They are already doing their contests on our platform. And we also believe that one constituent doing something breakthrough is impossible. Alone, you cannot do it. Only together we can do a high-quality product, high-quality HR product for other constituents. Final slide. We have been speaking about the future, about the past. There has been an employer's day. 200 lawyers were speaking in the audience, and the first question: do you want to work at the state service? And out of the 100 people, how many hands were raised? Do you think 10 hands out of 200? I spoke for them for 2 hours, and more than half of them put their hands up, so they want to work with the state service. So here's the cloud of tags, and this is what they think about a state official in 2030. You're 20 years old now. When you are 30 years old, what an official should be like? He should be efficient, competent, responsible, honest, great communicator, professional, and this is what our students are saying now, and this is what we should be striving for. We should have this approach to being a state official. And when I asked them, where do you want to work, which company you want to work for, and they said prosecutor's office and an investigative committee. Thank you very much. Pavel, your presentation is going to be the final one. And what about the voting? The voting, Yuri Ivanovich is going to tell us what's going on with the voting. Please show us the tag cloud. And let us vote now. Just like in the previous presentation, we have seen a cloud tag. Here's the cloud of tags. Please vote. Now we have a chance to... what are the values in your organization? The question is, what are the values in your organization? Which values do you... Which features do you think are the main ones? Which are the most valuable ones? Primarily, we have HR in the audience, right? So what do you think is most important in your employees? In this audience, I never expected to see openness as point number one. It's very surprising to me. Professionalism is number one now. Loyalty is ranking high. Alexei, I think you have impacted the situation. You should have stayed silent about it. This is the disadvantage of the cloud, tag cloud. It's like a crowd feeling. Well, people are voting. Let's give the floor to Pavel Sergeyevich. I think all the speakers today have mentioned the Leaders of Russia project. Pavel has been working with this competition for 2 years. He is chairman of the expert committee or the expert council. And I also wanted to briefly comment on the approaches about interviews and tests at interviews, what works well, what doesn't work. But you have to do it in 5 minutes. That's the tricky thing. As one of the well-known people, one psychiatrist said in the post-Soviet time, the one who knows how to love can love in 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is enough for the person who can love. Of course, I'm joking about the leaders of Russia. Even a day wouldn't be enough for me to speak about the leaders of Russia. Let me split my presentation in 2 parts. First, you're asking about the tools, right? Given the level of this discussion, I wanted to use more concepts here. I wanted to give more details because colleagues are speaking about some things that are beyond tools. They are speaking about some system-wise things. When I was listening to you, an idea struck me. I was asking myself, what's in common among all successful social lifts? And what are the problems that are in common among social lifts? This is what's going to be exhaustive about the love here. And there are 3 or 4 steps that come to my mind. First, there's a leader who creates some movement. For instance, there is a governor, there is a chairman of the central bank, there is a chairman of Sberbank some time ago. There is an initiative in our government, and a leader creates a movement. Leaders of Russia is a traditional buzz. Before that, we had a broth that didn't move. Now something is boiling in this broth. This buzz is attracting the right people. These are the way. A buzz is not only a competition, but also reorganization or redesign of processes is also a buzz. If everything is going on right with the buzz, then the right people come up. They improve the system, ultimately. And then the system starts creating the buzz. So the improved system starts creating the buzz. And that's the cycle. The cycle is ongoing, and it's going wider and wider. This is the main thesis. This is the difference between, this is what's in common between all efficient social lifts that we know of in Russia. What are the disadvantages of social lifts? For point 1, nobody needs it. There is no leader who needs it. If a leader doesn't need it at some point in time, nobody's going to do it. Consultants, HRs, you can do whatever you want, but nothing is going to happen. This is the first important barrier. If you have overcome this barrier, then it's going to be an important victory. Second, people will not get engaged and they will not believe in it. In the first leaders of Russia, the majority of questions that we received at different portals, at social networks, I personally received many text messages. Alexei received a heaven of these messages. And people were asking, is it really a fair competition? Is it really honest? And the matter of trust is really problematic here. When there was some transfer periods, honestly, my nephew didn't pass, but people were asking me, can you find an option? My nephew wants to take part in the leader of Russia. So this is the second barrier, the matter of trust. The leader who needs it will ban it, and people will, the leader creates this buzz, and some people will not trust it, some people will not believe it. We don't have much trust in our society as a whole. And barrier number 3, barrier of critical mass. For instance, the leader needs it. Let's assume people trust it, and there were very few people taking part in it. And when they get back to the old system kills it all. Or there are too many people. Alternative, there are too many people, and too many people then come back to a traditional organization, and they become too different, and they are killing the organization. And people might develop, and but they're burning. They're really high in the agenda, and there are too many of them. And so there must be an ecology, some cleaning in this process. On the one hand, there should be enough of people there, enough of participants, and on the other hand, there shouldn't be too many of them. This is the philosophic part of my speech. This is what came to my mind when I was listening to all your speeches. As to tests and assessments, I have a few ideas here as well. I'll try to be brief. The first, unfortunately, the market has too many non-scientific approaches. If I openly ask each one of you, and if I give you a list of 25 to 30 tests and assessment tools, and I will ask you to tell me which ones are better for assessment and which ones are better for self-development, but very bad for recruitment, and which ones of them are not tools at all in a scientific point of view, I'm not sure that all of you will take this test successfully. At least I know of some organizations that replace MBTIs with horoscopes. So the first idea about good tools is something that passes some assessment criteria such as validity and reliability. And second, don't use MBTI and DISC for self-comprehension when you are recruiting people. Maybe I'm saying some very obvious things. For many, these things are obvious, but for some people, I'm killing their favorite tool. But I will not check who is who here. This is idea number one, and this is the simplest part of the equation. And the second, what I wanted to say, it can take me a whole day to speak about it. Even a day will not be enough. There are many new things, many innovations. The digital footprint, for instance, we developed it on the basis of the database of the leaders of Russia. During the interview, and like a participant is taking an interview with an AI on the video conference. So, and there are two problems here. On the one hand, we can overestimate artificial intelligence because artificial intelligence actually has a very huge margin of error. They have a lot of errors and failures. This overestimation, when we start overly trust this artificial intelligence and this technology, for some reason, all of a sudden, we start believing in them too much and we start believing in real people. And this is what can kill the whole system. We should use common sense because, like, it's digital, it's cool, we should use it. And second, underestimation of these systems, because these systems are developing extremely rapidly and they're getting cheaper extremely rapidly. Things that used to take years and billions of investments, now it takes just a couple of years and very small investments. So there should be a balanced approach to modern technologies, to digital technologies particularly. Like, we should use common sense. Do not use horoscopes, use scientific tools. Do not use scientific tools for wrong purposes. So maintain a good balance between knowledge and digital technologies. The future is with digital technologies, this for sure, and assessments and tests will be done by technologies in the future for sure. In the future, a human labor will become a luxury and digital technologies will become a commodity. But the most importantly, you should give the right assessment to the speed and efficiency. Thank you. Thank you very much. I haven't mentioned that there has been a book published, and we haven't heard about it yet. You can read a book. At least I will. I'm waiting for this book to be sold in the stores. Here it is. Here it is. I can give it to you. Great, great. I've been moderating the session for the book. Great. Yuri Ivanovich, could you comment on the votings that we have seen today? We're beyond the timing, unfortunately. We will not have much time to take questions from the audience, but I really hope that in the corridors after the session, we will have a chance to take some questions. Maybe the audience, people from the audience will have a chance to catch some of our colleagues from the panel. Just a few words about the voting. Could you show me the cloud? Oh, yeah, you can keep this. You can keep this. Oh, we have seen it. No, we have not seen it. All right. Look, this is a great result. I think it's very positive as a result of studies. So studies resulted in career growth, in a promotion. It means that we're on the right track and we're doing the right thing. It's great when it yields result. Next. These are hard skills. The right answer was given only by 10% of the audience. Next slide, please. Here, this is one of the most simple ones. They're focusing on concentration, and the right answer was given by a half, and this is a very good indicator because it all happens in parallel. It was a trap, actually. It was a tricky question with a trap. But you did a good job. Great. When developing tests and assessments, test is not a remedy. Some colleagues at the preliminary meetings, you said that there's been done a survey correlation between a test and efficiency and high performance of an employee. And it turns out that there is no correlation. There is a bigger correlation with the performance of a manager rather than the correlation between performance of an employee and a test. But you just need to know how to use tests. You need to understand what you want to see, a profile of an employee. You need to know which kind of test you want to see. One person might fail a good specific test, but it doesn't mean that he is low performing. Maybe the test does not match this person. It's a fine thing here. It's a fine line. Results of tests are never a sentence, and you need to cherry pick a test for every person, and you really need to think whether it makes sense, because it's costly. If you set the purpose of choosing the right test for every person, then it might require a lot of investment and a lot of resources. Maybe there are some other ways to do it. However, on the other hand, if you are just selecting new employees, if you are recruiting people, common sense may be helpful. Let me share one more idea, one more thought. Thank you very much. You have prompted me into another idea. I will try to fit it into 5 minutes. Colleagues, tests are used to cut off the weak ones. They are reliable only in the beginning of the journey. Tests really reveal the difference between the weak ones and the successful ones, but they don't see the difference between the medium ones and the successful ones. You might be an average, you might be a strong one, but the most important thing that you're not weak one. This is where tests are good. They are eliminating the weak ones. This is what I forgot to say in the beginning. Thank you very much. And next slide is our tag cloud. In the beginning, during the registration, we had only 100 people. Then I see 100 people have voted. It's already good. And then 150 voted, 200 voted. And I started getting concerned. We have a broadcast. We have a live broadcast. In our building, we have live broadcast. And throughout the whole Russia, we have a broadcast. So we can take away the top result and we can look into this result. I'm ready to give you a chance to comment on this. State service is like a supermarket. Looks more like a supermarket. It must be customer focused. Let's take away the first one. The brightest one is 24/7. Honesty, professionalism, responsibility, creativity. So that's the profile of a state employee. It's about all organizations. It's a labor market. It represents how employees see the values in their organizations that they work for. Thank you very much. I wanted to make some conclusions from all the presentations, but since we are behind the schedule significantly, I wanted to express 3 thoughts. First, I think a couple of years ago, it would be impossible to imagine such a discussion at a state forum, at a financial forum particularly. It would not be able to have it happen. Many colleagues in many state authorities, in many organizations have new solutions, new approaches, very interesting approaches. They are very modern and they are contemporary. And point 3, which makes me happy particularly, colleagues are happy to share them. Colleagues are happy to share them with other regions, with executive authorities, with different organizations. They're ready to share their experiences. And so most importantly, we're all open about it. It gives a lot of hope. It shows that the future is very promising, and I hope it reflects the thoughts of everyone in this audience. Thank you very much to everybody who's in this session today. Thank you very much to our speakers. And let me repeat one more time. I hope we will get a chance to communicate and to talk after the session. A brief proposal. My second name is Antishkina. Leaders of Russia is a very important national competition. Leaders of Russia They have a trouble with integration into their environment. They have a problem with recognition. They really have it. But let's have a look into the following. Why don't leaders in Russia take part in preparation of the next Leaders of Russia contest? Why don't do it? Leaders of Russia 2019, the top positions, Leaders of Russia, why don't they train Leaders of Russia of 2020? It will be really great. It will help show the dynamic. Now people will suspect that it has been pre-planned. Now people will suspect. Now people will be very suspicious, because even now, when we're preparing contest of the next Leaders of Russia, the previous winners of Leaders of Russia are already taking part in preparation of the next Leaders of Russia. Thank you very much, dear colleagues.